We found out that this was just one wave of attacks from the United States, France and the United Kingdom, and that wave of airstrikes is over, according to the Pentagon. So similarly to what happened 1 year ago, despite the fact that the US president said this would be a sustained attack, it was a short one, a short series of airstrikes, precision attacks, according to the US president, on 3 different targets in Syria. Those targets being a chemical weapons facility near Damascus, near the capital. We've seen those pictures and we've heard about those explosions in Damascus. That appears to be that facility. Then 2 facilities near Homs, including the one from which the United States and its allies believe that the chemical weapons attack was staged last Saturday. This is where they believe the helicopter or helicopters that were used took off from. That is where British forces were involved. We know that 4 fighter jets from the British Royal Air Force were involved for those strikes near the city of Homs. Again, the United States, through the Pentagon, says that it believes that these strikes were successful, that there was no loss of life on the American side, and that this first wave of attacks is now over. In terms of what kind of weapons were used, we don't know exactly what kind, but we know how many. We heard there at the very end from the Pentagon. The Defense Secretary Jim Mattis said that just over double the amount of weapons were used compared to last year. Remember last year, 59 Tomahawk missiles were used by the United States. They came from 2 Navy destroyers in the Mediterranean. This leads you, of course, to believe that this was over 100 missiles that were used by the United States at least. We don't have numbers from the United Kingdom or from France at this point. The United States insisting that these were targeted strikes on just the 3 facilities, and that the United States made sure that there would be no loss of life to civilians and to foreigners. And speaking of foreigners and foreign forces in Syria, we know from the Defense Secretary of the United States, Jim Mattis, that there was contact with Russia, but only about which parts of the airspace over Syria would be used by the United States, France, and the United Kingdom. The United States says that Russia was not told beforehand which targets would be hit by the United States.
Philip, Jim Mattis said that they deliberately avoided Russian targets. What do you make of that?
Well, this was something that was to be expected. There is a deconfliction line between Russia and the United States. This means that the 2 countries on the military level are pretty much constantly in touch, at the very least every day, about who is using which part of the Syrian airspace, which fighter jets, which drones, for example, are being used in which part of the Syrian airspace. The United States wants to make sure that this does not turn into a military conflict between the United States and Russia. That could be catastrophic. According to what we heard here from the Pentagon, there was no direct conflict between the United States and Russia. The speakers at the Pentagon, the Defense Secretary and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joseph Dunford, were asked whether there were any Russian missile defense systems used. According to the Pentagon, the only information they have is that Syrian air defense systems were used. So in that sense, from the information we have for now from the Pentagon, there was no direct confrontation, no attempt from Russia to shoot down any US missiles, for example. And that is something that certainly the United States and France and the United Kingdom will be relieved did not happen tonight.